right, so here's part 2 of our little exercise on doing a pencil sketch of a rose. And I'm just going to continue on here. I'm going to grab my darker pencil, my 7B, and I'm going to just come in and put a little bit of this darker bits in, looking for where the shadow is. And there's just the tiniest bit of shadow here. And just a little bit above each of these petals, I'm going to do a little shadow. I'm going to take my Q-tip and blend it. All right, use the fuzzy side to really make soft. Just like this, okay. Well, it's starting to get there. I've got some nice shadows established, and I'm kind of blending a little bit over the top of everything because I'm going to go back and erase in some of my highlights. But I really wanted to just make it nice and soft. And put some darker shadows. So I'm going to come in and draw the negative space in here behind this petal, which means behind it, this petal here. So now it's really going to start making things pop as I come in and put the darker shadows in. So I'm going to just put in a few really sharp dark shadows, and that'll really give it some dimension. And then let's see, this guy. And there's this guy here. And I feel like I need to change that. I'm just going to come in and erase the top of that petal just to brighten it up a little bit here. And the same thing in here. I've lost my brightness around the back. So you really want to identify where the dark part is and blend that up into the light. But you don't want to get rid of all of your white. So it just takes practice. Just takes a little practice. And there's this petal that flips over right here. So I'm going to just clean up that top one. And I do feel like this is a really good exercise because, you know, half the time we're out of practice here. And I've been doing a lot of watercolor lately. So one thing that I want you to look at before you decide that you're done is that you have darks and lights throughout, right? So you don't have just one section that's all dark. You should have nice even shadow. So I'm going to try and balance the darks, right? So there's some dark on this side, there's some dark on that side, to give your art more interest. And anywhere you have a petal, on top of a petal, you want to make a little shadow, and then you want to come in and put in a highlight. So it's one of those things, it's the process. Draw it out, find your shadows, put your shadows in, create your light areas with your eraser. I'm just going to make a little bit more defined here on the edge of this guy. And the same here. This edge got lost in all the blending. So I'm going to just sharpen it up. So if your edges are getting really fuzzy, make sure you have a nice crisp edge there, right? So if I've accidentally gone off the edge, right, you want to make sure you come in with your eraser, clean it up. We don't want fuzzy edges because our rose petal is very clean edges. It's not like fur where we want a soft fuzzy edge. We want it nice and crisp. And then I'm going to just work on my stem. So you've got to decide where the light side is and where the bright side is. So I'm going to come in and just draw the edges in here. And then I'm going to do a shadow on this side. So this will be the time where you need a nice pointy blending tool. And if you haven't the light side, you can always come back in and lighten up one side. And we want it a little thicker at the top here. So like that. All right, so let's do a leaf. I'm just gonna go around the outside here. And I'm making that jagged. You know what, I think I'm gonna change the way this picture is. Artistic editing, we decide. And then I'm just going to put in some lines like this. And then I'm going to blend it out. All right, we just want a shadow. I don't really want it drawn in perfectly. So since this is behind the rose, I'm going to come back in and make that much darker. And there's a little shadow from that leaf. Right, so we want nice crisp edges. Again, I'm going to come back in. I'm going to go underneath my rose petal here. I'm going to put a nice shadow in so we can see where that stem is. And this rose is casting, you know, this petal here is casting a shadow. So we want a nice dark shadow, and I want to pop that little leaf out. So I'm going to come in behind it here and do a little back shadow. Like that, and blend it out. Now you don't have to use a blending stick. You know, if you like that kind of sketchy look, then you have to get a little practice in on your cross hatching. So here's another little leaf. Just gonna give it a jagged edge, and again, put a few lines on it, and maybe I'll make this one a little darker here. And we're just going to blend a little bit. I'm not going to get too mixed up in trying to make that look perfect, because these leaves are supposed to be kind of afterthoughts, right? We want the emphasis of the picture to be on our little bud here, our rose. So I'm doing it pretty quick and a little sketchy. I'm using the side of my blending, so I have larger surface area. Just going to come in, give it a little shadow, and maybe I'll just tidy up that edge. You know, it's a little darker in the middle here because the sleeve's folding in half. So I'm going to come in and make that a little darker. And then we'll clean up the big mess I made, since I am a scribbly artist today. There we go. And then we have a little light reflecting, so I'm going to just erase in a little reflection here, because our rose leaves are shiny, so we have a little flash from the sun. Keep it neat, right? All right. Now I'm going to clean up my white petals, make them nice and white, because I've been blending a lot. So I'm going to come in on my edges and really get some nice whites back. And this one, for some reason, is really white. Maybe I didn't blend that one, I don't know. But I'm just going to soften up the shadows there. And a little bit more here, some white. Now I realize that my picture doesn't look exactly like the photograph, and honestly, that's fine. We're just gonna have it. If it looks like a rose that you've drawn, then that's an art win, right? Don't worry too much if it's exact. So I have a lot of my students are like, well, it's not looking like the picture. Well, it's one thing if you're doing fan art. You know, if you're drawing Homer Simpson, he has to look like Homer Simpson. If you're drawing a rose, as long as it ends up looking like a rose when you're done, great. So, you know, that's just a quick drawing. And as you work on it, you can come in and develop more of the shadow behind some of these petals. And sometimes you can just take the picture away and decide where you feel like it needs some shadows. So I might put in a few more, you know, beef up these between these petals here. Decide how you want it to look. And if you're really feeling crazy, this picture has a black background. So you could come in and do a black background, and that's what we call doing negative space. But just know that once you start putting the dark background in like that, you have to commit to it. And if you're going to do a black background, I want you to use the side of your pencil so you have more surface area, and do a nice even tone just like this. I don't want to see any pencil streaks, right? Don't do lines like this where there's space between. Nice and even, the whole thing, and then use a nice big fluffy Q-tip in little circles to blend it so you get a nice even tone shadow just like that, right? So if you're going to come in and put a whole black background around, which will look really neat on the white rose, just like it does in the photograph, it pops. Or you could just leave it like this, cut it out. You could paste it onto a card to give to your mom for Mother's Day, something like that. All right, well, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe and like my video. Thank you.